Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing just a little bit of a quickie review. I don't know, I don't have a whole lot to say about this book. I just finished it like, I don't know, an hour or two ago. And as you guys can see by the title, of course, I am talking about Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson, otherwise known as Secret Project 3. I know Secret Project 4 just came out, but the only way I've been reading them is through the traditionally published Tor versions of it. So I won't be getting to Secret Project 4 until it releases in January of 24. And even then I might not even read it because I know it's very Cosmere centric, and I've only just recently started reading Stormlight. So I at least want to get a bit further into that before I do read Sunlit Man. That's neither here nor there. I did, like I said, finish Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and I don't know, I think I definitely have a little bit of different opinion on the secret projects than a lot of people do. At least like where I put my number one secret project seems to be a lot of people's least favorite, and I don't know, this one seems to be pretty polarizing. I've seen a lot of people absolutely love it, and I've also seen a lot of people didn't really care for it. So this one was kind of hit or miss for a lot of people, it seems. And I think it's more on the miss side for me personally. And I'll tell you guys why more here in just a second. So as it stands, I'll do a little bit of a ranking for the secret projects. In last place, I am going to go Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Second place, I'm going to go Tress of the Emerald Sea. And for first place so far, I'm going to have to go with the Frugal Wizard. It's been my favorite. And yeah, without further ado, I'll get into why this is in last place for me so far. Alright, so firstly, just by the nature of it, it's about art and stuff, about painting, and that's just something I've never really been interested in. It's not you don't need to like painting and stuff to be into it. There's a lot of references to like thinking about art on a deeper level, and there's also commentary on how AI, and what I believe is commentary on how like AI and technology plays into the art industry these days. But I've never been one to really care about art in that sense. Like a lot of the art you'll see in museums and stuff, it's pretty cool. But like people saying, oh, this art piece really made me feel things, or like, oh, it's so deep, like that kind of stuff. Like those art critics and people of that sort, you guys know what I'm talking about, just don't care about that sort of thing. So going into this, I didn't want it to be that, which is why, you know, when you think about manga like Blue Period, that kind of thing, or even a lot of like the music anime and stuff, I just don't really care for. I bring those up specifically because this manga is heavily manga / anime inspired. So I was using those specific examples, but I just don't care for things like that. So when I actually did read it, I was pleasantly surprised that didn't play as big of a role in the actual story than I thought it was going to. Instead, it was more so like art was a big part of it, but it was more so like the characters' internal like struggles, I guess, rather than like the art itself. So I did like that. The two characters were pretty decent. I didn't really care for Yumi as much. I did care about like the predicament that they were put in, and I thought that whole thing was interesting, almost like a Freaky Friday kind of deal. Like that was interesting. That was all right. But Yumi did make me mad at a lot of points in the story because she is definitely a very big hypocrite. I talked about this a little bit in my review I did on Goodreads, but Yumi likes to pull the whole like, oh, this is my world, now you're gonna abide my rules kind of thing when he's in her body. But like whenever she goes to his world and he's forced to be a ghost, she just ignores her own rules and just does whatever she wants when she's technically in his body. And so, I don't know. That part definitely kind of made me mad. And it happens at multiple points in the story. And the main character, Painter, he doesn't really do anything about it. Like, he may have mentioned it once, but he's kind of a pushover in that sense. So, didn't really care for her in those parts. Parts of it that I did really like, however, was the whole mystery. We're sort of, given this whole predicament just off the bat, and we don't know why this happened or like how exactly it happened. Like, it's like a little bit of clues are given to us at the beginning, and by the end, obviously, we figure out what exactly happened. But I really like that sense of wonder at the beginning, because when he goes to her world, he's like in her body, but like when she goes to his world, she is herself, and he's a ghost outside of her body. It's just like, why would he be in her body, in her world, but not the same? So that whole thing was like weird, and it ended up being pretty cool, pretty interesting once it all gets wrapped together. Hoyd was the narrator for this book as well, and I do quite like Hoyd. He's pretty funny in my opinion. After reading Tress of the Emerald Sea, yeah, he's definitely a pretty funny character. I don't know what else he's in. He was mentioned where I'm at so far in Stormlight Archive. He was mentioned. I think he's like being hunted or something like that. I don't know. It was like in one of the first like interludes, there were some people hunting him down. I think that's what they said. But yeah, he's definitely a really cool character. I like him. He's like a god pretty much, but he's just kind of a doofus. So I think that's really, really interesting. In the whole book, he was a statue, pretty much. He was frozen in place and used as a coat rack. So I thought that was pretty funny. A lot of my big problems with this book does come from the pacing. I did think that a lot of the middle of the book felt like fluff. It was very monotonous, and it was a bit of a struggle to get through. Like, I understand that, they were trying to figure out how to get out of this and stuff, but just the day by day of, just stacking rocks and going through her whole rituals and stuff, and then her just doing basic human things, it was kind of boring. And for a long time, I didn't feel like the book was going anywhere, and I really did consider DNFing the book. That's not something I do often, and definitely not something I wanted to do with a Sanderson book, because I wanted to be able to read it all and give a full review on it. But I kept pushing, and it ended up being somewhat worth it. By the end, the last, 100 pages or so, was once you hit part 4 of the book, part 4 was pretty good. Part 3 was definitely pretty rough, in my opinion, to get through, at least up until the end. It started to get a little bit more interesting as we do get into the finale of the book. Yeah, it was overall pretty boring at times, but there were some interesting moments when little details do get revealed, and, it's like, oh, maybe I should keep reading. And it did keep me engaged, but there were times when I really did want to just DNF. And one of the things I thought was kind of weird was that this book, what I see reviews and stuff, people talking about it, is people say it's a romance book, but honestly I don't really see that. I mean, yeah, they ended up being a thing, spoiler alert. But honestly, I feel like a lot of the tension between them, it was obvious they kind of had a thing for each other, even at the beginning of the book, and all that tension didn't really seem too compelling. It didn't there was moments where they would be oh, he looked away blushing, and it's okay, and then it would quickly go into something else. So any romantic tension that was between them, it didn't even linger on it enough to really matter. So like I saw it coming. I understood that like they were like having a thing for each other, but it didn't focus on it enough to be what I would consider a romance story or a romantic book. It was more so focused on their predicament and what they were going through, and then there was just like a very little bit of romance sprinkled on top, rather than this being a romance book with like a fantasy story, as I've heard a lot of people talk about it as. Or maybe I'm just missing the mark, and that's just the way that I perceived what they were saying. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So yeah, that's basically all my thoughts. Overall, it was a decent book. My least favorite of the Secret Project so far, though I don't necessarily regret reading it. Can't wait for Sunlit Man, because hopefully that's a step up from this. And, you know, for a standalone, I know a lot of times standalones can be kind of rough because they don't have a lot of time, like your big epic fantasy books do. But for, like I said, for a standalone, it was able to tell a cohesive story that I thought was decently engaging. It had a good mystery to it, and it wrapped up nicely as well. So you can't really complain there. You would have got, reading this, you would have got everything that you could want from it. I will say that the ending there was a little bit rushed. You know, when they do the whole like half chapter things where they, you know, it switches between both of their points of view within the same chapter. I understood that's probably to like build tension, switching from scene to scene. But when it did that, I will say it was just a little bit rushed. And then when our story actually wraps up, it's through like a second hand account. It's not even actually like we see what happens. So, I mean, the ending was, I like how it wrapped up, but us actually getting insight into how it wrapped up and all that was kind of whack. I wish we would have actually seen it firsthand, what was happening, rather than like Hoyd saying, oh yeah, by the way, somebody told me that this is what they're doing now. Like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of lame, but overall, I'd give it probably 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was pretty good. Not terrible, just not a book that I think was written for me. Not my thing in particular. Yeah, it was okay. I liked it. So that is going to about do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because I would greatly appreciate it. And that does help the channel grow here. I'm trying to build that community. I know I did take a little bit of a break for a couple weeks, so that probably didn't help, but it's all good. We're trying to get back into the groove of things when I can. I do have a haul coming soon for everything from September and October, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be an absolute banger. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.